Okay, we are recording, and it which chapter four? Chapter four of Princess Bride, and it is easily, well, I'm guessing it's going to be the shortest chapter in the entire thing, which is potentially meant to be somewhat satirical because it's all just, you might not be able to tell that that's in italics, meaning that's an insert from Goldman explaining why, yeah, I completely removed this chapter because basically nothing happens in it, at least nothing important. And it explains, all my father used to say at this point was, what with one thing and another, 3 years passed. This does kind of give a summary there, but it's supposedly, in the original Morgenstern, it was 105 pages. So that's, assuming it's the same trim, that's 105 pages. At least assuming, page 1, page 2, page 3, page 4, like that, and not counting front and back. But yeah, single chapter that long. That's I've had some long chapters. That's But it's all because it's dealing with, supposedly Morgenstern is trying to mock doctors because of it lists all the cures being that the new miracle man is applying to try to save, try to improve the health of the king. It also mocks nobles because they fought over whether or not Buttercup could marry Humperdinck because Humperdinck is a prince. It needs to be somebody that's a noble. So they solved that by making her Princess of Hammersmith, which was this little lump of land attached to the rear of the king's holdings. I don't, with my speech impediment, I don't really want to try saying his name. I kind of wonder if it's actually in here. Not that I can see. I'm looking at the map. But it does remind me, where was it? It might have been in Connecticut Yankee and King Arthur's court. Or it may have actually been in Le Morte. I think it was more likely in Connecticut Yankee, which Mark Twain, making fun of a lot of stuff. This, in my opinion, is not clearly satirical. Connecticut Yankee definitely is satirical. Like, that one, you really can't avoid it. It is satirical. But it's also kind of like how, The Guns of Navarone, the only reason Gregory Peck was willing to do that is because it's an anti-war film. But you actually watch it and it's like, no, this is actually a great war film. And it's, he and some other people might be bothered by that, but it is also one of those things I look at and it's like, well, no, both are true. Because the best war films, the best anti-war films are war films, where you're showing what actually is going on in there. So the fact that movie is, technically is more so espionage than full-on warfare, but it does involve having to murder some people in cold blood. It's like, guess what? That does happen in war. There's a lot of stuff that happens in war. A lot of it doesn't get made into movies. And best way to try to avoid war in situations like that is you let people know what actually happened. Anyway, coming back to this. So yeah, it's... not only is she made Princess of Hammersmith, but there's also 72 pages, supposedly, of training her to be a princess, and this followed her day by day, month to month. Learns the correct ways of curtsying, tea-poing, and how to address nabobs and like that. Everything that's meant... I'm not familiar with that word. Maybe it does have a specific meaning, or it's just... I'm guessing more of a soft slur towards nobles. But, all this in a satiric vein, naturally, since Morgenstern hated royalty more even than doctors. But it is also weird to me, just to mention satire, because of how one of the things in the reader's guide, the group reading guide, suggested that the whole thing is, more of the story satirical. And it's like, I'm not really seeing it. I mean, some of it, yes, a little bit, like the whole evil stepmother thing. It's like, okay, I get that, but that's not really satire to me. That's just a joke. Maybe I'm just so used to satire. To me, it's just a joke. Um, I'm trying to think what actually is Monty Python and the Holy Grail. Monty Python and the Holy Grail. That would be much more satire. I'm just trying to think what else would be. Undeniably, it is a satire. To a degree, UHF. I'm looking at my stack of movies here. They're dark satires, but A Face in the Crowd and Ace in the Hole would both be satires to a degree. Murder by Death, that's absolutely a satire. But that that is done with such good sincerity, though, that a lot of it is like you can just watch that and it's a funny movie, but if you get the references, then you see it's a satire. So yeah. But anyway, yeah, this one fairly simple. Although yeah, so this is okay. So this is all in lead up to her being introduced to the world as the coming queen. So she would be the Princess Bride. Although I'm not sure if Princess Bride refers to after she's married or before she's married. That like she is who that will be. She is who will marry Humperdinck. I'm not sure when the name would necessarily be applied, but in any case. But yeah, awaiting her introduction, and by then he, Humperdinck, was into the terrific business dealing with the kidnapping. So I do wonder then. I mean, there's got to be the explanation for why he actually wants her kidnapped, why he wants the war with Gilder. Because when you think about that, that's also a dangerous thing. Not just if it would have failed, but the whole he does have such a duty to produce a son, to have a son, that's like he can't exactly do without some wife. I'm sorry, I'm trying to see how long this next chapter is. I did see one spot that may open up to cut in half. It's not kind of. Wow, this is. Okay, this is insane if he's actually doing what I think he's doing here. Holy crap, that's actually what he did. I am not a fan of this. The head slap, I will explain. So, he basically has, for the entirety of the next chapter, the announcement, the kidnapping, the man in black coming, saving her, everything to here where we have, like when we are both men of action, Wesley replied, lies do not become us. Well spoken. It's like, which is, I don't have any issue reading that. It's on the last page. That's directly in the movie. But it's like, that's the center meat of the movie is one chapter. You know how thick that is? From page 89 to 200. So he just made fun of the previous chapter was the longest one in there at 105 pages, and he's at 110 on this next one. I ain't doing it that way. There was no way I could do that. I'm not sure how I'm going to cut them up. But there's, like, maybe I will be following this, where we've got just here and then we get Inigo, and it seems like that's breaks off a little bit to give us his backstory. I do not know. I legitimately do not know how I'm going to... man. Okay, and then we do have another one here that's Fezzik. Please let there be another. Okay, hang on. Okay, so that may work. There might be more or less natural cut points for me. Okay. Because I'm assuming Inigo here is, okay, top of the Cliffs of Insanity, The Duel. A little later, we get Fezzik. There isn't a Vizzini label, but two down and the hardest one to go, Vizzini was waiting for him. So it looks like that's that. There is a spot here where it seems like, okay, they have now gone to the fire swamp, so yeah, and so I'm gonna have to cut this up, which is so annoying because of how much I'm gonna have to. That's gonna mess with so many things. With the thumbnails, I mean that sounds minor, and in some ways it is. It's just annoying file management that I'll have to do. So yeah, that I do think he's being satirical. This is a, oh man, this one chapter was so long that I figured I just cut it all down because who really cares, or even cut it out. And this one, it's like, nah, it's just, which is actually funny when because it also makes him dishonest. Because he says, where is it? Yeah. Would you believe that in the original Morgenstern, this, meaning the chapter this video is actually about, the preparations, this is the longest single chapter in the book? Well, if 5, this next one is 110 pages long, and it's the abridged version, then he either had to have merged chapters, or what he's saying is a lie, which potentially that's all it is. It is just a lie. He's saying these things because he can. But I mean, who knows? Maybe as I read it, there will be an explanation. I did see at least one spot where there was more of the italic stuff for explanation. But yeah, I'm gonna have to break it up. There's no way. So I have had to a few times before where I do the reading, I make all the notes, but then I like have to go for dinner, and then when I come back, I do the video, and I hate doing that because I calm down too much in some cases. Because I remember having to do that with some of the Star Wars stuff where it's like, I hate this chapter. I really hate this chapter. But then I calm down because I've eaten and all that. I come back and then it's like, okay, I need to go through my notes again to remember everything. But it's also the whole, yeah, I really hate that, but I'm not so energetic about it now. It's like, come on. So yeah, I will have to break that up. I'm just not sure how best to do it. And I can't do it at every spot where there is some sort of time skip, like right here where it is just, an extra blank line, so I know there's something there. But as I said, there's an Inigo section, there's an Inigo subchapter, there's a Fezzik subchapter. I will just invent the Vizzini subchapter. And I may have to invent another few and figure from there. Yeah. At least I am glad about one thing I do. My bookmark here, which I like. I figured out that it's kind of an origami thing, just some fold-up paper. Then I did that when I was young, and I like doing that. So it just slides over page corner, and technically one side is thicker than the other. Because like this is single sheet thickness, so I can tell which side page. What I do when I'm doing this is I put it where I'm reading to, which is typically the next chapter. So that's going to be helpful because I will plan out where the next one is and put it in there. But there's also why I do need to look forward. And yeah, 110 pages. How long are the chapters after that? Oh wait, I can actually look at. Okay. So there is still chapters 6, 7, and 8. Okay. That's 7. This also makes me glad that I've not been. The chapters do all have names. I'm glad I haven't been actually using them. Because that way it can be, this is chapter 5, Inigo, chapter 5, Fezzik. So what are we looking at for length on 6? 60 pages for 6. I'm going to figure out some way to cut that in half too. It's just, that's going to take way too long to... I cannot set aside that much time in my day to read a chapter, making notes, and then make a video. That's just not viable for me. Just one reason why I'm changing my other reading habits. because I always try to read some a day, but I try not to count these. Okay. Okay, this one. About 40 pages for the one after. That's fine. I'll put up with that. That's still kind of long, but I'll deal with that. Okay, and then the last one is about 20 pages. Okay. So yeah, I will. Just gonna have to make a note somewhere in this that chapters 5 and 6 are very long. You need to invent subchapters. Yeah. I do wish I could just read this for my own enjoyment, but I mean I am also, but doing this, and it's just the practicalities of doing these videos, I have to make some changes to it. And one thing that did occur to me, and I didn't say it, but I will say it now, that is one thing when writing a book, where do you start and end chapters? And it is an interesting question. Fortunately for me, my style normally, I do end the chapter on something that it does kind of end. Like, there's some sort of transition that occurs, or when it is one chapter does go directly into the next. Like in the 40s for the Show Many Gifts, there is a because it does go from one battle to one fight to the next and next and next in the battles in that battle. But it is like, okay, but it's the fight against this person, then it's the fight against this person. So I have a transition there. That's easy. Other times when it is like time is passing. So like in A Letter from Catherine, it might only be like 15 minutes, half an hour. But I will typically end it on I'll end a chapter on something. Fairly often it is, to me at least, a humorous note. Maybe it actually isn't funny to people. I don't know. But I do tend to do that. That's just like part of my style. But it is still something that's a statement is made or an action is made that it is concluding, and then you can move on to the next. So for me, it is no. Chapters do tend to have actual, this is where it ends. I do kind of wonder with other people, other authors, if they do have chapters that are more floating, which would just be a very different style from mine. And styles are styles. I mean, can there be a bad style? Yeah, probably. But for the most part, I would say, nah, it's just whatever you're doing. I do kind of wonder then if there is a floating chapter style where you could move it up without having to necessarily rewrite everything. It is an interesting idea. Anyway, this video is long enough. It was long enough probably about 10 minutes ago, but it is what it is. I mean, if you want, no, I'm not. I was gonna say, if you want, I could just keep going and make this the longest video, which would mean passing like 50 minutes or something, even though it's the shortest chapter. But yeah. I guess one thing that I will add is, obviously, if you are trying to read this yourself at any point, depending on how, I don't like stopping in the middle of chapters when I read, which unfortunately I will have to do here. But it is just one of those, you may want to look forward to see where chapters end, so you have an idea, and it's like, oh yeah, like I'm not reading that all tonight, or okay, so where's a good, let me find a good place to stop, and then stop there. So anyway, see you next time.